If you want a vintage story world to last long term, it is vital to start it the right way. So in this video, I will show you how to go from creating a world to surviving the first few days the best and quickest way possible. Let's check it out. Now the first step when creating any vintage story world is, well, creating it. Before you just press create world, there is a couple of things you want to do first. Of course, I recommend naming your world something. Honestly, most of the time I just play on default settings. The default experience is already really well balanced for a first playthrough. That being said, there is one setting I strongly recommend changing: disable class specific recipes. The very first time I played with this setting turned on, but later I disabled it. Seriously, just do it. Otherwise, depending on your class, you can lose access to armor and weapon recipes, and it mostly just becomes annoying rather than interesting. Especially if you are a new player. If you want bigger oceans or more separated continents, you can tweak the world generation settings. For oceans, you want land cover around 30 to 40%. But overall, the rest of the settings are fine on default. And the last thing we need to look into is the seed. Some seeds are better than others. For example, you spawn near useful resources. Sometimes you can find ores in open caves and you don't have to go for them underground. So go with random or search for an insanely good one. It's up to you. Now let's talk about classes. I honestly don't think classes matter as much as some people say they do, especially for beginners. Every class has strengths and weaknesses, and most of them become less important once you actually understand the game. For example, Blackguard can be incredibly difficult early game because of the increased hunger rate, and trust me, food is already one of your biggest problems at the start, so eating more food while barely surviving is rough. But late game, Blackguard might honestly be one of the strongest classes because of the bonus health, extra damage and faster mining speed. Once you have stable farms and food production, the downside barely matters anymore. My personal favorite class is the Clockmaker, partly because of the movement speed bonus, which Hunter also has, but mostly because I just like the lore and the aesthetics of it. But honestly, just choose whatever sounds fun to you. You are not going to lose the game because you picked the wrong class. So now we spawn into the world. And obviously, the first thing we want to do is punch a tree. Just kidding. Unlike the other block game, Vintage Story actually makes you work for your progression. You can't instantly craft tools out of thin air. Instead, we do what our ancestors did. We use rocks.
Did I hear a rockin' stone?
The very first thing you should do is snap a stone knife. This lets you harvest things like cattails, grass, thatch and other resources much more efficiently. After that, make a stone axe, a shovel and weapons. The axe is essential because it gives you access to firewood and logs. The shovel is important to get, among other things, sand and dirt to build up that beautiful estate that you will reside in. And for weapons, I almost always make 4 spears immediately. 4 spears is basically the standard early game loadout. Being able to throw spears gives you a massive advantage against animals and drifters before you have proper armor or metal tools. As for materials, obsidian is technically the best early game stone, but flint is the second best and more common option. But honestly, most of the stones are fine, however, some are too soft for making tools. The important thing is getting equipped quickly before the game starts throwing problems at you. Even if you have played other survival games before, I highly recommend actually completing the tutorial objectives. Vintage Story has a lot of mechanics that are genuinely unique, things like knapping, clay forming, pit cones, panning, nutrition systems, food spoilage and many more. The game expects you to learn slowly and the tutorial actually explains things pretty well. A lot of players skip it because they assume survival game knowledge transfers over. It doesn't. The game will humble you very quickly if you ignore its systems. Now, while you are doing all of this, there is one thing you should constantly be looking for at all times. Food. And I mean constantly. Every time you travel somewhere, gather resources or explore a new area, your eyes should always be scanning the environment for anything edible. Early game, the best food sources are usually anything that doesn't run away from you and doesn't try to eat you first. So mainly berry bushes, mushrooms, vegetables, grains. Hunting early on is risky because animals are significantly more dangerous than people expect. You are not an apex predator yet, you are basically an anxious caveman holding sharp rocks together with hope. And while you are exploring and looking out for food, there is another thing that is extremely important. Mark everything. Seriously, mark everything on your map. You find surface copper? Mark it, because there is more underground. You find clay? Mark it. You find peat? Mark it. You find ruins? Mark them. Cool cave entrances? Mark. Berry patch? Mark. Mark? Mark. Future you is going to thank you massively for this. Nothing feels worse than finding an amazing resource early game and then never being able to locate it again because I will remember where it was turned out to be a complete lie. Once you have your basic tools and you know to look out for food and marking locations, your next problem becomes inventory space. Because your starting inventory is awful. You basically have a toolbar, so one of your early priorities should be crafting hand baskets. Hand baskets massively increase your carrying capacity and make exploration way more efficient. And trust me, you are going to become a loot goblin extremely quickly in this game.
The power of the sun in the palm of my hand.
You will leave your base saying, I am just getting sticks, and somehow return carrying rocks, mushrooms, flax fibers, clay, copper nuggets, animal fat, bones, seeds, resin, and 14 stacks of dirt you swear you didn't pick up intentionally. Inventory space matters a lot. Now, after inventory management, the next major priority is defense. Because the wildlife in Vintage Story is absolutely brutal early game. Wolves are deadly, boars are aggressive, and bears, if it's bear, good night. Even something as simple as improvised armor can make a huge difference. Is it amazing armor? No. But sometimes the difference between surviving and dying is literally one extra hit. Also, by being injured, your hunger will drain more quickly. So you should avoid fighting unless you absolutely have to. A lot of newer players treat every animal encounter like an action game. That is a mistake. Sometimes the correct survival strategy is simply
run away, little girl, run away.
At this point, you should start thinking about shelter before nightfall. And honestly, your first base does not need to look good. Do not waste your first several days trying to build some massive aesthetic house you saw on YouTube. Your first shelter can literally just be a dirt hut. You can always move later. The most important thing is location. If I had to choose the ideal early game settlement area, I would probably pick somewhere near forests and water. Forests give you firewood and mushrooms, and water is important for penning and because farming becomes incredibly important now. Back in older versions, you could survive mostly on berries for a really long time. That's not nearly as viable anymore. Starting farms early is a huge advantage, so whenever you find seeds from wild crops, plant them immediately. Even a tiny starter farm can make your long-term survival much easier. Before your first night arrives, there are a few things you absolutely want ready. First, torches. Make torches, carry torches, love torches, because nights in Vintage Story are dark. You don't have night vision, the animals and drifters have.
Hello there.
You should also make a fire pit before nightfall and make sure you have extra firewood on hand. Now, if you want to be really efficient during your first night, I highly recommend looking for sand or bony soil earlier in the day, mostly sand, because nighttime is actually a perfect opportunity to start panning. Panning is one of the safest productive activities you can do during nights, and more importantly, it can give you incredibly valuable resources. The main thing we are looking for early on is copper. Getting enough copper nuggets quickly can massively speed up your progression into the copper age. But panning can also give flints, bones, gems, and other useful materials. So instead of wandering around in darkness, getting chased by wolves, you can spend your first night calmly, standing in water, shaking dirt around like a prehistoric gold prospector. I would say this is a vintage story world started the right way. If you are interested in similar content, don't forget to check out this playlist, which already has a few videos in it and will probably have more and more. If you would like to see more content like this, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you next time. Bye!